Welcome back to Hawboro and to Triad Stage's social distancing radio theater for the second part of Edward II. In our last episode, Edward Carson Blessing II, his wife Isabella, and daughter Eleanor flew back to North Carolina from New York when they received news Edward's father was dying. Arriving back in Hawboro at Asterdale, his family's home, Edward Blessing II confronted his aunt, Lucy Evans Blessing, and the Reverend Barry Cantor. We learned that the young Edward Blessing had been kicked out of Asterdale and forbidden to return as long as his father was living. Left alone with his daughter, Edward spoke of his hope his father's will would keep the family textile business in the Blessing bloodline. Later, Edward made a mysterious phone call to New Orleans, requesting the Lady Danielle Beaubois to come meet him in Hawboro. The call was overheard and interrupted by the private nurse Peggy Pickler, who informed him that his father had passed away. It is just now after 10 a.m. the next morning, March 22nd, 1966. Family and friends are gathered in the library at Asterdale to plan the funeral of Edward Carson Blessing I. Lucy Evans Blessing and the vice president of Blessing Mills, Mortimer Chestnutt, are using both phones on the desk to make funeral arrangements. Isabella Blessing is looking through an Episcopalian hymnal, while Reverend Barry Cantor enjoys a cup of coffee while writing the funeral sermon.
Thank you, Carl. I really appreciate the offer. I think having the Boy Scouts follow right behind the family is a lovely idea. Do me a favor, have that Lynx boy, what's his name? Oh, that's right. Yes, have little Felton carry the flag. Oh, Mr. Edward would have liked that. Yes, yes. Thank you. Goodbye.
The Boy Scouts are in?
Of course the Boy Scouts are in. This family has always been generous to the Boy Scouts. So, it will be the funeral carriage first, the family next.
Hold on. Of course, yes. And I'll pass on your sincere sympathies. Thank you so much. Yes, so I tell you, I'm disappointed, but I understand. Yes, God bless. Goodbye. They're sending the goddamn Commerce Secretary.
Who in the Sam Hill is the Commerce Secretary?
Well, it used to be Luther.
Well, it isn't anymore.
Oh, John T. Connor, isn't it?
That's right, Reverend. I remember. John T. Connor, like Model T Ford.
Hush, both of you. I don't mean who exactly is the Commerce Secretary. I mean who, in the context of this disappointing administration, is the piddling little Commerce Secretary actually. They could have sent Fowler if they aren't going to send us who we want.
Billy says there ain't no way we can have Johnson. The Peaceniks got marches planned Saturday, all over the country. There ain't no way Johnson's gonna be in Hawboro during that.
Well, we will remember in 68. If all we're getting is Connor, the elected officials can follow the Boy Scouts. And the Rotary. And the Odd Fellows.
Now, Lucy, you know Sam won't like that.
And imagine Dan.
Oh, all right, all right. We'll bring the government dignitaries, such as they are, after the family. But, Mortimer, you make it completely clear the next time you talk with your contacts on Pennsylvania Avenue that the Blessings are getting in bed with Wallace. And fast.
I don't like Wallace. He's so common.
But he's one of us, Isabella.
And this Johnson has gone out of his way to prove that he most definitely isn't.
I don't much like that Martin Luther King fellow either. I think him and Wallace are always fussing all the time.
Well, don't worry, dear. I think I can assure you Martin Luther King is not invited to the funeral.
I'm excited to see Sin Irvin again. He told me the funniest story at my wedding. It was about a mule who...
Isabella, we need you to focus on picking the hymns, please.
Of course, Aunt Lucy. Sorry. I was raised Baptist. These hymns are all strange to me.
Well, just pick some. It doesn't matter. Be an Episcopalian, whatever you pick, it will be slow and dull.
Goodness.
Ain't you going to defend your faith, Reverend?
There's many a Sunday morning when the choir is going on and on that I myself wish I'd been called to be a Baptist.
Why weren't you, Reverend?
Well, begging your pardon, Isabella, but even though one may every once in a while come across a rich Baptist, one very rarely encounters a well-bred one. Oh, present company accepted.
I'm an Episcopalian now. Mr. Blessing made it clear I had no bit... Oh, I know this one. Amazing Grace. I didn't know it was Episcopal.
Amazing Grace is common. We're Episcopal for a reason. Pick something with a longer name.
Did Mr. Blessing have any hymns of which he was especially fond of?
My brother-in-law was not especially fond of anything that had to do with church.
Lucy.
It's true.
But he went every Sunday.
That was just to set a good example for the citizenry.
What good is the example if you don't believe?
Reverend, could you help Isabella select the hymns, please?
Here, sit by me, darling. We can pick together.
All right.
Pardon, Mrs. Blessing. I wanted to bring y'all a fresh pot of coffee.
Thanks, Olive. You can put it on the table there.
Yes, ma'am.
I could use a warm-up, Olive, if you don't mind.
Not at all, Reverend. Here you are.
Thank you. I imagine it must be hard for you, Olive, having worked for so long for old Mr. Blessing, to say goodbye to him.
Well, sir, everybody on my side of town is cut up something awful.
I'll take a cup, Olive, as long as you're pouring.
Of course, Mrs. Blessing, I'll fetch you one.
I suspect we will get to know each other much better now, Olive.
Oh, yes, ma'am?
Since Eddie and Ellie and I will be moving home.
Oh, is that the plan, Isabella?
Well, of course. 2 lumps of sugar, if you don't mind, Olive, and just the tiniest splash of cream. Eddie says that now that his father is moved on...
Shut your mouth.
Here's your coffee, ma'am.
Any sign of Eddie, Olive? We haven't seen hide nor hair.
No, ma'am. Would you like me to take him some coffee?
Oh, no, leave him be.
Eddie likes to spend the mornings with the papers. He reads all the papers, the Times, the World Telegram, the Journal American, the stock reports.
I doubt he'll find much interest in the Sun or the Dispatch.
Oh, I don't know.
How you going to keep them down on the farm after they seen Paris? Right, Mortimer?
How do you like living in New York City, Isabella? That must be different.
Oh, well, we don't live in Manhattan any longer. We bought a lovely house in Garden City. That's on Long Island. Eddie says it's so much safer there.
And what does Eddie do in Garden City, Isabella?
Well, nobody does anything in Garden City, Aunt Lucy. They take the train to Manhattan. Eddie has an office near Wall Street, but I don't actually really know what he does. My brain isn't equipped for business, but Eddie, My, he's gotten ever so smart when it comes to investments, Aunt Lucy. I believe, finally, he's taken after his daddy. I guess that runs in the Blessing blood. I guess
That will be
means...
all, Olive.
Mm-hmm.
And that will be all, Isabella. Your faithfulness is awe-inspiring, but you still haven't picked a single hymn. When you marry into the Blessing family, dear, take it from one with long experience. You simply must prove yourself useful.
Isabella, let's put our heads together and we'll come up with some hymns.
Operator, put a call into B. Everett Jordan for me, would you? No, not his office. His home in Saxapahaw.
Where's Eddie?
Who cares?
You shouldn't be too hard on him. He might be sitting right here in this big chair before all is said and done.
Impossible.
I wouldn't be so sure.
Jordans aren't picking up their phone.
Oh, yes. The sentiment of that is perfectly fine. What's it called?
The strife is over.
Not by a long shot.
What?
If Mortimer here can be believed, I'm afraid the strife might just have begun. Isabella, you've done a sufficient job. That is a perfectly beautiful choice, and the Reverend can pick the rest. Why don't you go make sure Ellie is presentable? We need to be at Siskin's after lunch to purchase our mourning.
Yes, Aunt Lucy. Excuse me, gentlemen.
You shouldn't be so hard on her, Miss Lucy. She didn't have much say in who she married.
Do not try to change the subject.
I always thought she was sweet on you, Mortimer.
I was certainly sweet on her.
Will you, both of you, hush?
Goodness, Lucy.
What exactly did you mean by that remarkable statement, Mortimer? That he might be sitting in the big chair. What do you know? Have you seen the will?
Of course I haven't seen the will. As a rule, you shouldn't trust any lawyer with a secret, but Charlie Cunningham is the exception who proves that rule.
Charlie is the soul of discretion.
Charlie's an insufferable prig, is what Charlie is. But if you haven't seen the will, why on earth would you make such a ludicrous suggestion?
You can't tell me you haven't worried about it yourself. We've all worried about it. We've all been worried about it ever since there was the cleansing. Why else would we all have gone to such extraordinary extremes to keep Eddie away from Hawboro? You, especially.
I have gone to such extraordinary extremes because I love Hawboro. I can't speak for the rest of you, but I have gone to such extraordinary extremes to protect the health of this community, the moral standing of this community, not for selfish goals or financial gain. Eddie is a cancer in this community. We had to cut him out.
Well said.
Cancer or not, Eddie is, after all, a blessing, a blood blessing. And if we forget that, we could lose everything.
I refuse to believe...
Old Mr. Blesson spoke to me on numerous occasions, as recently as last week.
Here? On his deathbed? And you didn't tell me?
I assumed he was saying the same to you. You know this troubled him.
I'm a bit confused. What are y'all arguing about?
Mortimer just implied that Eddie is going to inherit the entire estate.
Good heavens.
I didn't say the entire estate.
You implied. You said he'd be sitting at this desk in the big chair soon.
Yes, I did say that, but I didn't say the entire estate.
But the bulk of it, the lion's share. What did my brother-in-law say to you?
The same he said to everybody, as far as I can tell. And the same, I'm sure, he said to you. He told me first when he took me on. When the bank failed, and he kept on telling me just about till the day he died. He promised his daddy, when his daddy was dying, that he would leave the business to Blood.
Goddamn blessings and their goddamn obsession with blood.
Lucy!
I'm more of a blessing than that deviant son of his could ever be, blood or no. When I married his brother, George Henry, I pledged my troth not just to him, but to the whole damn family. And when my George Henry was wounded that horrible way, fighting for his country in Morocco, I traveled all the way to Bristol, England, in the middle of the greatest naval battle known to man, to be there, to tend to him when he was evacuated. I sat by him in that hospital with Nazi bombs blasting all around me, nursed him even when the sight and the smell of him made my gorge rise. I brought him, burned and deformed as he was, all the way back to Hawboro so he could die at home, surrounded by his family. I comforted him at his last breath. I mourned him and honored him, and from that day we laid him in the ground until the blessed second the good Lord calls me home. I have been and will continually be a steadfast soldier, constant and valiant for the blessings. I have given my blood for their blood. I am family.
Well said, Lucy. Well said.
I hear you, Miss Lucy. I do not disagree. You are indeed family, and deserve to be recognized thus. But you know the blessings. The last time I saw him, before the morphine made him crazy, he grabbed my hand and swore I was 1,000 times more of a son than Eddie had ever been, but I needed to know that life wasn't fair, and sad as it was, sometimes blood had to come first. He said he knew it was a difficult pill, but that I'd understand when I had blood of my own.
And what did he say about me? With his hand in yours, spitting in your face, what did he say about me?
He never said anything about you.
That ungrateful son of a bitch.
Lucy.
Oh, for Christ's sake, Reverend, this isn't about God. This is about money. Reverend, do you have any idea what this will mean to St. Crispin's? If Eddie gets it all?
I didn't say all.
The lion's share, that's what you said. The bulk of it, right?
The majority, yes.
How could he do this? Leave this all to that sick, disgusting...
I think he hoped maybe it would settle him. That all this trouble was just... He's still a young man. It was just a phase for Eddie. It would pass.
Sin don't pass.
Young men, though, Lucy, it's true, do sometimes sow their wild oats too far afield from where they ought. When I was at Sewanee, it was not unusual for a young man to, well...
Are you trying to confess something, Reverend?
Heavens, no. Good gracious, no. I am talking about other young men of less moral standing.
Eddie is not a young man. He's 33. The exact same age as Jesus when he died upon the cross. Sinless. He's a fully formed adult, and any wild oats he had to sow, he should have sowed them years ago. I tried to explain that to his father. I tried to explain to Edward. I did. I brought Charlie here to be with him to talk about the will. And they did. They did. Oh, what will we do? What will become of us if that abomination seizes control?
So this is where the fun is. Have you all planned the big to-do yet?
Hello, Eddie. My condolences.
And my condolences to you, Morty. He was like a father to you, wasn't he? Much more than he was to me. But then you never disappointed him. Good morning, Reverend. How are things in heaven? And Aunt Lucy Evans, my condolences to you. Every last one of the blessings who loved you is dead. So where are we going to dump my daddy?
Edward.
Pay him no mind, Reverend. He's crass. Mr. Edward Blessing
The first.
will lie in repose here at Asterdale in the ballroom, so that all can come and pay their last respects.
All?
We will have an honor guard and rope stanchions to protect the house from the common public, a simple pathway from the front door down the hall and just around the corner.
The Alleluia corner?
Beg pardon?
Everybody who rounds that corner and sees my dead daddy is going to shout, Alleluia!
Your father is dead, Eddie. And there are a great many people in this town, in this house, for whom his absence is a great, pressing sorrow. That you could never appreciate his wisdom and upstanding moral purity is a failure of your own character that I fear will pain you greatly in years to come.
Perhaps it will, Aunt Lucy Evans, perhaps it will, but at this moment, it is your hypocrisy that is giving me this particular pain in my ass.
On Saturday morning, the pallbearers, you, me, his Virginia cousins on your...
I ain't going to be no pallbearer.
Eddie.
I ain't going to carry my daddy nowhere.
You don't have a choice.
Oh, yes, I do. I will not carry my dead daddy anywhere. If it was up to me, we'd drag his corpse through town tied to the back of a pickup truck, and whatever was left of him, we'd tie it to bricks and toss it in the hall. Isn't that what you and that boys' club of yours does when y'all want to get rid of a troublemaker, Morty? Tie bricks around them and toss it in the hall?
Listen up, Eddie. And listen well. You will carry your daddy like a son should. You will comport yourself with dignity. You will be sober. And whether or not you are sad, you will pretend to be sad. There has been no will read yet. Not till next week will there be any settling of this here estate, and until that very time, you will be the son you failed so miserably to be. And pay heed to me now. If you don't, if you differ in one little jot from the things of my boys' club and I are going to break in here and haul you out on the street in front of your wife and your daughter and whoop your ass. Is that clear?
Are they sending Johnson?
The Commerce Secretary.
The Democrats have abandoned the South. So where is it exactly I'm going to carry my daddy?
There will be a funeral carriage, Eddie. Like when your grandfather died.
Same one?
Yes.
Same one that will carry me. That's morbid.
The family will follow, the dignitaries afterward, then the Boy Scouts, the Masons, Elks, Rotary, etc.
Council is meeting tonight to pass a resolution asking all local businesses to close for the duration of the observance.
Sounds like a big event.
Your daddy led a big life. His impact was far-reaching. As one of the leading industrialists of the past half-century...
Save it for the pulpit, Reverend.
Sorry. It's one of the most important sermons I'll ever preach. I buried your grandfather when I was young, and I'm burying your daddy now that I'm old. I doubt I'll live long enough to bury you.
I certainly hope not, Reverend. I certainly do. What are you now? 172?
I turned 68 last November.
Well, aren't you the walking advertisement for Christian fidelity? Seems to me y'all got this show planned good enough already. I understand the role that I'm forced to play, and Morty, I will not disappoint. Now, if y'all will excuse me...
Morning, Mr. Blessing.
Good Lord, Peggy, you scared me.
My job's done here.
That's right, another blessing's dead. Don't take this the wrong way, but I hope I won't see you again for a long, long time. I'll leave you to your machinations and go say good morning to my daughter.
Mrs. Blessing, I come to talk to you about my last pay.
Oh, Peggy, of course. Mortimer here will get you a check.
I'll write it now.
Seems like I've been making the journey up to Asterdale pretty often recent.
It's true, Peggy, I'm sorry to say.
2 sisters, one after the other, and now old Mr. Blessing. Seemed like death just come up to your house, sat down in the parlor, and made himself at home.
Let us pray Mr. Blessing's passing will be the last.
No chance of that. As long as there's blessings alive, there will be blessings dying.
Here you are, Mrs. Pickler.
Thank you.
He wasn't a very easy patient, was he?
Hard folk do tend to fight death. Not like his wife. Miss Margaret, she welcomed death. Didn't put up a fight at all. But I reckon that's the usual way with us women. All them trials and tribulations we gotta suffer for Eve's sin. When death comes a-calling, most of us welcome his outstretched hand.
Not me, Peggy Pickler. I'll fight until my last breath, and I'll wager you do the same.
No, ma'am. I'm holiness, see? And I know I'm going home to heaven. Me and my Cyrus. We didn't have much time together here on earth, but he's waiting in paradise for me, my Cyrus. He's been a-waiting constant and true ever since that terrible day when the fire broke out in the carding room in the old mill. Remember? Oh, them men folk just screaming, burning, but they couldn't get out. Them doors was locked, and it was fire and flame, and they was trapped like souls in hell. But they weren't there long, no. My Lord Jesus come down and led them by the hand all the way home to glory, and that's where my Cyrus is. They locked them doors, but my Cyrus is free. I can't wait to join him. Oh, son, you got that suitcase?
Yeah. You ready, Mama?
Coming. When you need me, whistle. I'll come running.
Is that... Which one of the Pickler boys was that?
Mace, the middle one. He just started in the dye room.
Oh, I don't much like the look of him.
Every one of those boys looks mean as a snake.
I am convinced if Jesus had met the Picklers, he would have revised that bit about loving your neighbor.
She's a bitter woman. She told me, with much righteous indignation, that Eddie was here drinking when she came down to inform him of his daddy's passing, and that he was on the phone. She heard him through the door, long distance.
there are plenty of reasons to make a long-distance phone call.
After midnight. If it's true, what you insinuate, Mortimer, if it is the truth the estate is going almost completely to Eddie, can we fight it?
On what grounds? I think we always knew this gravy train would one day run out of...
I will not be cast aside.
Then you will have to cast your lot with Eddie.
And his whore.
Reverend!
Well, it's in the Bible. Does anyone mind if I get myself a drink? It's a little early, but the times are troubled. Anything for you, Lucy? Mortimer?
No.
Please.
There. That's better. Has anyone heard anything from or about you-know-who? Just up and disappeared as far as I can tell.
Well, Reverend, what happened there is rather complicated.
As Reverend Cantor draws nearer to Lucy, and she prepares to reveal her story, we leave the scene. I hope you'll join us again soon in Hawboro on Triad Stage's Social Distancing Radio Theater for the next part of Edward II. I'm Preston Lane, producing artistic director of Triad Stage and the author of Edward II, and I want to thank you very much for listening. I also want to give a very special thank you to our artistic team, Sarah Hankins, Foley artist Keaton Brower, props master Andy Canning-Skinner, and our editor, Taylor Denkovich. The cast of this episode featured Cindy Strickland as Lucy Evans Blessing, Brian Mullins as Mortimer Chestnutt, Jeffrey West as the Reverend Barry Cantor, Abigail Wilson as Isabella Blessing, Melanie Matthews as Olive Rogers, Michael Newman as Edward Blessing II, Beth Ritson as Peggy Pickler, and Bradley Carter as Mace Pickler. For more information about Hawboro, including a Blessing family tree, visit hawboro.org. To stay up to date on what Hawboro is doing right now, check out facebook.com/Hawboro. For more virtual content from Triad Stage, visit us on Facebook and Instagram at Triad Stage. Support for the arts is more vital now than ever, and your help is essential. Please like and share our virtual content to spread the word about how we are continuing conversations with our audience and community. To make a donation to support our continued work, you can visit our website at triadstage.org/support. Again, thank you for listening, and we'll see you back in Hawboro.